Welcome in, Hokies, to episode 278 of the Tech Sideline podcast. Today we're going to talk about one of the hottest topics in college sports, NIL, name, image, and likeness. College athletes making money from their fame and their status. We've got a special guest today, Jim Petrine of a Virginia Tech NIL organization called the Hokie Way. We're going to talk to Jim about what the Hokie Way is, how it works, and how it's transforming the Virginia Tech NIL space and shedding a positive light on a subject that has sometimes gotten some bad press. I'm TSL founder Will Stewart, and this is the Tech Sideline podcast. Tech Sideline is presented by First Bank and Trust Company. If you like the Tech Sideline podcast, then you like First Bank and Trust Company. Their presenting sponsorship of TSL makes it possible for us to employ, clothe, house, and feed our army of interns that make the TSL podcast not only possible, but good. First Bank and Trust Company is the bank that puts you first. Visit firstbank.com to learn more. So speaking of our army of interns, we have a small crew today. It's me and Jim Petrine on set, with Nick Brown producing. Nick, thank you for coming in on your vacation from school. So ladies and gentlemen, let's say hello to our guest, board president and the driving force behind the Hokie Way, Jim Petrine. Jim, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you. I enjoy it. Looking forward to it.
Yeah. So Jim, we're going to get to who you are and why you're so awesome here in a second. But first, a brief intro to the topic of NIL. So most of our listeners and readers know about NIL, but we always have some people that don't, and they're here to learn. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read 4 paragraphs, the intro paragraphs from our Tech Sideline Virginia Tech NIL guide, which can be found, you're not going to believe this, by Googling Tech Sideline Virginia Tech NIL guide. So if you ever want to read the rest of it, do that. So let me read you the first 4 paragraphs. On June 30th, 2021, the NCAA approved a name, image, and likeness NIL policy. So it's about a year and a half ago. This policy allows college athletes to be compensated for their NIL. In other words, college athletes can now use their fame for profit via endorsement opportunities, public and personal appearances, branded merchandise sales, and more. Now, the rules for universities are complicated, but in essence, colleges cannot set up, create, or administer the NIL opportunities for athletes. So this must be done by outside organizations that are not part of the university. So around the country, this has led to the creation of aptly named collectives. The collectives collect a pool of money, typically in the millions of dollars, from 1, businesses seeking to align themselves with athletes in exchange for promotion; 2, big money donors seeking to provide funds to increase the size of their athletes' money-making agreements; and 3, smaller donors, crowdsourcing, who have the same goal as the larger donors. The collectives then sign college athletes to contracts that pay the athletes money in exchange for the athletes' services promoting businesses, creating awareness of causes, selling merchandise, etc. So that's the basics of NIL. So, Jim, knowing the basics of NIL, let's pretend you and I have just met and we're at the team hotel at a road game. And we're getting ready. We're on the 15th floor where we're getting ready to get on the elevator. And you've got 15 floors to tell me about what the Hokie Way is and give me your elevator pitch. So to put you on the spot, go.
All right. Well, my first question would be to ask the person who's asking the question, how much do you know about the NIL world? Because this pitch is totally different depending on what you know. But
I know a fair amount, so go ahead.
A fair amount. All right. I'll start out with how then the Hokie Way is something I think is special in this NIL ecosystem. It is that our organization, number one, is a charitable organization. That's where we differ. We're not a collective. We work with collectives in order to facilitate the money to the student athlete. But our number one difference is that we are a charitable organization, a 501c3. We are looking to utilize the name, image, and likeness of student athletes to help charities. That's the key difference. And it's pretty simple. Our goal is through charitable work using student athletes.
So when I hear that, and I've studied this stuff, and this is what I tell people to differentiate. So you are going to, in one sense, you do serve the function of a collective to collect money.
Correct.
And your money is going to wind up going to student athletes.
Correct.
But only for promoting charitable causes and organizations. So if you've got, say, a car dealership and you want athletes to promote your car dealership, you don't come to the Hokie Way.
No.
You go to one of the collectives.
Collectives,
right?
correct.
So every bit of money you guys collect and use for these promotional purposes, you use it to promote charitable causes and organizations.
Correct.
Right.
To give you the full speech too is, and first thing I tell everybody, go to our website.
Right.
That tells you more details. thehokieway.org. It will paint it out to you. We have a 5-step process of your money comes to us. We then work with the collective. We then work with partners. We have a request for partners on our website. So these are organizations that would like to hire Hokie athletes to do events for them. Also, the final steps of being, then we work with collectives like Commonwealth and Triumph,
Right.
Who are then are engaged with the student athletes to do that final facilitating of them doing the work for the charity. And thus, our money then gets to the student athlete.
Through the collectives. So you align with charitable organizations, but it's up to the collectives, be it Commonwealth NIL or Triumph NIL, to get the athlete to do the work. They're the ones with the contracts with the athletes.
Correct.
So you might turn to Triumph and say, hey, such and such an organization wants 2 or 3 Virginia Tech basketball players to appear and promote their organization. Right. So you just turn to Triumph and say, we've got however many dollars to make that happen. Mm-hmm. They want to use these basketball players, and then Triumph, for example, kind of takes it from there.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep. I can read some off of some of the applications we've already received, probably to give you a better feel for just what these student athletes are doing.
That's great, and I do want to get to that. Okay. I do want to point out to people something that you said. You are not a collective, and that's why I refer to the Hokie Way as an NIL organization.
Right.
So what is it that, let's drill down into that just a little bit. What is it that makes you not a collective? What's the distinction between a collective and what you guys do?
Well, probably the biggest technical difference is we don't directly have contracts with student athletes. Right. The collectives have that and do the advertising, do the work of actually paying the student athlete and getting them to do the filming, the media work,
production of graphics, all that
production,
sort of thing.
All that. Yeah. What we have is a memorandum of understanding with our collectives that we work with, that they will take care of that final step with the student athlete, and they'll do that for a minimum amount of money. We currently have it that they'll do it at cost of a maximum of 12%. I think that's a key thing in our fundraising, is that if you give us $100, $88 are hopefully going to the student
at
athlete.
Least
that's
$88.
Yep. The collective is only taking 12% at max. They have to show us a cost for that money.
Right.
They're not looking to make profits off the Hokie Way. That's a key thing.
So one of the questions I get a lot is, I want to get into your board a little later. There's 9 people on the board. Okay. It's an impressive board. And one of the questions we get when NIL comes up is the fans ask us, okay, so I donate to the Hokie Way, or I donate to Triumph, or I donate to Commonwealth. How much are they scraping off the top?
Right.
So let's get to that right away. When you donate to the Hokie Way, let's say you guys bring in $200,000 worth of donations. Let's just throw a number on it. How much of that goes to your board members and your people involved in your organization?
0. The board is making 0. In fact, I have checked the latest number, but all of our board members are mostly donating. We're all fellow Hokies who have supported Hokie athletics through different ways. But the Hokie Way does not pay any board members. That's
so you hear that, everybody? Zero.
Just, and I will qualify that one way. Obviously, we had startup cost.
Right.
One of those startup costs was we had to have a lawyer do all of our application work for a 501c3, which was quite a bit of work. One of our board members is Jim Cowan, who is a lawyer. He did all that work and then sent us a bill, had to, because legally you have to do that. And we then, he then donated the money right back. In other words, he donated his work. So technically it did show, he had to show a billing for his legal work.
Right.
And then he donated his services back to us.
Right.
So
that becomes a tax write-off for him.
Yeah. But other than, but
so that's great. It was really important to me to get that out of the way because people are learning about NIL, and that's one of the common questions that they have. Right. So you've gotten into some of this. Well, first of all, let's say donations to the other thing that differentiates the Hokie Way as a nonprofit is donations to the Hokie Way are tax deductible.
Biggest key fact.
Which is not true if you're donating to Commonwealth or to Triumph. You know, sorry, I don't want to paint them in a bad light.
Yeah,
and,
right.
You know,
that's more a business expense. People are
correct.
looking for businesses doing that type of work.
Yeah,
I've always felt the biggest difference here, if you don't mind, I started out trying to learn about NIL early on and name, image, and likeness, being that I was trying to help Virginia Tech. I've supported Virginia Tech all my life. I've been a Hokie Club member, you know, paid all the different dues, done all the different things. But this new world, I was trying to learn about it. And as we learned about it, Hot Route Triumph came out. And so I wanted to help. I said, wow, this is going to be a game changer. So I wrote a check early on to Hot Route. And when I wrote that check, I really didn't have a good feel for what I was writing it for. I said, so they're going to come back to me and ask me what I'd want to spend the money, have the student athlete do. Because you have to have the student athlete perform some type of work to get paid.
right.
And at some point, if you write a check to Commonwealth or Triumphs, they say, what do you need the student athlete to perform? Well, if you're a business, that's easy. You know, you say, well, I want them to help promote my car business or this business or that business. But if you're just a Hokie fan who just wants to help your student athletes in your program, you're like, I don't know, do I want them to come, you know, cut grass at my house? No, that doesn't work. No, yeah. What am I doing here? So it's kind of tough for those who don't have a business to promote to get behind the name, image, and likeness process. So that's when my wheels started turning of saying, you know, Hokie Nation is a good nation, fundraising source. We are good as a group.
Generous.
Yeah, we are very generous. Our fans turn out no matter what. As a group, we're very good. We don't have the billionaire or the, you know, big money people, but as a group, we turn out in masses. And I said, there's got to be some way for the masses to be able to easily get involved in this and chip in and be good for them. And that's when I started thinking about the charitable organization part. And it just hit me, ut prosum, to be honest with you. I mean, we are always trying to do positive at Virginia Tech and have a positive goal. And in fact, early on, we were thinking about calling the organization ut prosum, but we had to do the correct rules of checking with Virginia Tech and making sure what we were allowed to do. And they said, yeah, that didn't sound quite right.
Most people outside don't know how to pronounce that anyway.
Right.
So.
I'd never get it right myself either. So, so we had to come up with different ways, and we even had to get the official okay to use Hokie in the name.
Right. Every time I see your logo and the name, there's a little TM next to the word Hokie.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we've, as we started this organization, we've done the arm's length communication with the university. Make sure we're doing the proper things, yet they're not directing us because they can't direct us.
Right.
So we have to, though, make sure what we're doing and we're trying to help what is okay. And that's how we ended up coming up with the Hokie way.
So so what I hear you saying is that you did what you felt was the right thing. You donated to a collective, but it wasn't quite flipping your switch the right way. You wanted
Absolutely.
something that you thought would speak to the heart of Hokie Nation, to the mission of the university. And that's when you came up with this idea. And I imagine you've spent, I know that NIL has turned Tech Sideline's world upside down.
Absolutely.
We spend a lot of time covering it,
Yeah.
doing projects and things like that. And I'm sure this has basically consumed your life since you generated the idea.
Yeah.
So let's get into, let's let people know a little bit who you are
Okay.
and why you decided to embark on this very time consuming journey. All I really know about you, you and I know each other, but all I really know about you is that your wife, Debbie, was the first female rector of the Board of Visitors. But that's really all I know about you. What's your story? When did you go to Tech? You know, what's your degree in? What's your life story? You know, in 30 words or less.
Oh, 30 words or less. All right.
Well,
good
one
luck.
paragraph.
All right. Well, I'm kind of fortunate in that I always knew what I wanted to do in life. I always wanted to own my own company and be a home builder. And I was one of those people who engineering was my only avenue because when people looked at my SATs, they saw my math scores, they went, oh, wow, you can go anywhere. When they saw my English scores, they went, well, maybe not. Let's keep you in the engineering side. So mathematics, numbers was my game. So engineering was an easy decision for me.
So what kind of engineering degree did you
I'm a
get?
civil engineer at Virginia Tech. That's my degree.
Yeah.
And I'll also say my other love was football. I played football through grade school, high school, and walked on at Virginia Tech.
Did you really?
Yeah.
What position?
Linebacker, defensive end. But I was too small and I was also too young. I was only 17 years old.
Yeah.
Everybody told me I should have gone to prep school for a year to prep and then go, but being hard-headed, I wanted to go straight on to college as a youngster.
So when was this? Who was your coach?
Oh, Jimmy Sharp, the end of the famous Sharp, the last year of the great Jimmy Sharp.
So how many years were you on the football team as a walk-on? Just the one? Or?
That's why I hesitate to mention it. I have the shortest walk-on and walk-off career in Virginia Tech football history.
Okay.
As soon as I got to 5-hour engineering classes and those type of things, I went like, yeah, this is not going to work out as good as I was hoping.
Well, I got a degree in electrical engineering, so
okay,
man, you know
that class work hits you quick.
Universities are a different world these days. Back then, they weeded you out, man. I remember sitting in engineering fundamentals, and the guy would tell us what to do, and when we didn't understand what he was talking about or what to do, he would just kind of chuckle at us.
Yeah,
like, well, you know, figure it out. So anyway. So what years were you at Virginia Tech? When did you graduate?
I graduated in 1980. I was class of 79, but I co-opted part of the time. So I partially had extra year, what they say, I forget what you call it. But my sophomore years were the best years of my life.
Yes.
Have a few extra.
So did you get an advanced degree?
No.
So you go out and what'd you do? Start a construction company? And
well, it was 1980 when I graduated, and interest rates were 18-19%.
I remember that.
And the world was a nightmare in the last of the Jimmy Carter years, so I couldn't start a company right away. But so I went to work for Columbia Gas, and then believe it or not, Bath County AEP. Worked at a huge power plant and did my learned things through major construction there. Yeah. But then after 4 years of that is when I could have moved to another power project job, or I could go out on my own. And I then took that chance I'd finally built up enough money, a little bit of money, to make that move and start my own business of building one house at a time on Smith Mountain Lake, of all places.
Wow. So yeah, I can imagine that went pretty well. So you stayed close to Virginia Tech and became, probably a fairly significant donor. Would you say?
Well, slowly over the years. Obviously, as I started out, I didn't have a lot of money, so I was a Hokie Club member from right off the bat, and always came to home football games. Loved coming back to football games.
So through. Now, you were never on the BOV yourself, none of that kind of stuff.
I've always been on the athletic side. I've never been I always knew I had to run my own company because I was never
wanted to sit in meetings.
No, being in the big board meetings and dealing with that was not my cup of tea.
So somewhere along the way, you developed relationships and contacts to where when you embarked on a project like this, I mean, you have to have the support of heavy hitters at Virginia Tech.
Well, I've had good relationships with Virginia Tech. Both me and my wife has always given back, and through various groups. I was a member, of the Roanoke Valley Hokie Club for years. And we did fundraising projects, and we got to know people. And heck, going back to the old days of Dave Brain and Dutch Bachman, believe it or not. When we first, I was on the board of the Roanoke Valley Hokie Club very early on.
Right.
So I started being very involved in the athletics side of the university from way back.
So appreciate all that background info. This is actually... I'm just learning right along with you guys.
Okay.
So I do want to talk about, I meant to take a break occasionally and talk about the matching gifts program that you've got going on. So all month long, we've been promoting that now through December 31st, any money donated to the Hokie Way will be matched by an unnamed mysterious benefactor in the shadows. Up to $200,000. So your goal this month was to raise $200,000, have it matched, and come away with $400,000 total.
Right.
So what do you have to tell us about that?
Well, I have to tell you some great news, actually. That program has worked very well. In fact, so well, before I came here today, we were checking the numbers, and we have already matched that $200,000 goal.
That's incredible.
And I tell you, we don't have the exact numbers, but a large majority, I'm glad to say, is small donations that we feel have come in through Tech Sidelines.
For promotion on Tech
We've
Sidelines.
seen different promotion that you've done and different bumps when you've done it. And we've gotten a great response, which is what I was always hoping for in this program. That would be a lot of the masses. We're going to need the big donors. We're courting those also. That's more of a long-term project. But believe it or not, what's crazy about this, we only got our 501c3 approval in late October.
Right.
So in 2 months' time, we've generated this kind of enthusiasm, which is what I felt I knew Hokie Nation could do. So because of that, before I got here, I also talked with the board and got another commitment made. And that is that right now I'm happy to announce that $200,000 match, since it's already been met, has been increased by $100,000. So any donation that comes in now through the end of the year,
which is Saturday.
So
we're talking 3 days.
3 days here. Any donation that comes in now through the end of the year will also be matched up to $100,000. Now that matching donor will actually make their donation in 2023.
Right.
But once we see how much we get in at the end of this year, we'll do that matching donation. Now, let me say a couple things about donations. Online, you can go online, donate up to midnight at 11:59 on 12/31. You can also, though, and we actually prefer this, if you want to write a bigger check, if you're giving more than 1,000 or so, write a check. Date the check before 12/31 or earlier and get it postmarked. before 12/31. That's the key. You got to get it to the post office, get it postmarked before 12/31. Even if we receive it a week later, which, the mail, it still counts.
For 2022.
Yeah, for 2022. And you will get the donation notification from us to count against your taxes for 2022.
So I have a couple things to say about that. Number one, that's very exciting and impressive.
It is.
Folks, we're not talking about an organization that has 20 or 30,000 Twitter followers or anything like that.
Yeah.
You're just getting started.
Just getting started. Yeah.
You've been a low-key organization till now.
Yeah.
There's a, and I see this on the message boards all the time. There is a fear amongst the Virginia Tech fan base that they can't compete.
Right.
Well, let me tell you something. $400,000 in a month.
Yeah.
Virginia Tech can be competitive in NIL. I told you this before we went on the air. I read an article the other day where, we've all seen the headlines of John Ruiz at Miami dumping millions and millions into their NIL. And we've heard the story. I don't think it's true. The Texas A&M paid $30 million in NIL money for a recruiting class. Yeah. We hear stories like that, but I read a quote in an article the other day that most athletic directors around the country, most Power 5 athletic directors have said, we have no more than $5 million across our entire athletic department in NIL money. Yeah. So it's not like every other school out there is piling up 10, 20, $30 million and Virginia Tech can't compete.
Right.
What you are telling me is that you're going to turn the corner into 2023 with at least what I will call a $400,000 war chest.
Yeah.
And more, depending upon what people donate now through the end of the year.
Correct.
And we're not even getting into the money that's coming into Commonwealth separately.
Right.
That's coming into Triumph separately.
Correct.
And as this NIL effort gains momentum, and, I would imagine that your organization, you're also going to approach larger donors. What you've done so far has been mostly crowdsourced.
Right.
And when you start imparting your mission to larger donors and maybe even some businesses, it's going to speak to them. So I think this is great. This is a thing that's really got good momentum. So congratulations on everything you've done and what you've been able to do so far. Now, if you're watching the podcast live on YouTube, I neglected to set this up ahead of time, but once we archive the podcast, we will have a link to the Hokie in the video description. Click on it. Good. So somebody's dropped it into the chat, and we've done this in previous podcasts. We drop it into the chat and we tell people it's easy, and they do it. And I've done it. It's crazy easy. I mean, so one of the things we publicized was that Tech Sideline donated $2,000, which was matched. Yeah. And so my thing about that is that's where 1% of your money came from. So it's great that the other 99% has come in. That is awesome. Yeah. So let's see. Let's get into. Let's go back a little bit in the conversation. So the Hokie Way is going to partner with, or has partnered with, nonprofits.
Correct.
You're taking RFPs, requests for proposal.
Request for partnership.
Partnership. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm from the engineering world. RFP is request for proposal.
I
actually did work as an engineer.
Yeah. I forget the exact terminology on there, but you're correct.
So ultimately, once you are fully spooled up, how many nonprofits will you partner with? Is there a limit on it, or?
We want to start out with 10 and just to make it manageable. And then depending on what happens down the road, again, we'll see how that goes. All these rules, I love it. The best terminology I have for all this is we are flying the plane as we build it. Everybody is learning as we go.
Building the plane as you fly it.
Yeah, flying the plane as we build it, or building the plane as
either
you
one works.
Yeah, whatever. Anyway, it's complicated. It's not an easy task to do. So, we have certain rules that will probably change. But to start out with, we want to have just 10 organizations so we could have a manageable amount. And we've requested people to go on the website and apply to be our partner in this organization. Mm-hmm. And I'll give you a typical one is like Feeding Southwest Virginia.
By the way, we've left something out. You were only partnering with organizations in the Commonwealth of Virginia, correct? Or is that
Not
changing?
necessarily.
Okay, so
that may change. Just currently, right now, we've only done. I don't know if we want to make that a hard and fast rule.
Okay.
And the reason I say that is I envision that on Military Appreciation Day, we're going to want to have a very good military fundraiser as one of our partners.
Right.
And that may end up being somebody like Wounded Warriors or a more national group.
Nice.
Because it just fits. Virginia Tech, we do a great, our long history of, the Corps cadets, and every year we have Military Appreciation Day. Wouldn't it be great if we were also tied in with an awesome organization that was helping our vets?
So that's an example of something. By the way, we'll be here to help you promote that.
Yes, yeah.
So that's an example of something that would be timely and could extend to a larger national
group. Yeah.
So where are you in the process of getting to 10? So give me an example of maybe
right
something.
Now we've had 4 applications, and one of which, just to give you an idea, is Feeding Southwest Virginia. And what they ask for is for student athletes who can make personal appearances at volunteer groups or serve in groups and appearances at donor events to help support the mission. Also to help distributing food boxes, doing those type of things to promote, to be sharing the work and educating about hunger in Southwest Virginia. This is like a 3-page, application that says all the different things.
Very specific things.
How we'll get the student athlete involved, engaged in doing, helping their organization. Another application came in is Special Olympics. They're actually asking for our basketball players to be coaches at some of their events to help their Special Olympic athletes. They would co-coach with coaches who are qualified with Special Olympics. But they're asking for honorary coaches, and that would help promote the Special Olympics and that type of thing. Yeah. So there's a lot of different groups that are asking that have ways that the athlete will get involved in philanthropy work, not just asking for money. They're doing other things too, projects.
And this is really neat because you see it with professional athletes that they get their big contract, and they a lot of professional athletes will start foundations. They'll partner with charitable organizations. And so the discussion around college athletics for so long was, the players don't get paid anything.
Right.
And well, now that NIL has come along and athletes are getting paid, you very quickly see their interest in the same thing that happened at the professional level. They want to partner with charitable organizations and participate in these kind of things because it makes them feel better. Sure, they'll promote a business. If you want to pay for them to promote their business, particularly if you do something like give them a car to drive, they'll promote your car dealership, But it's also got to be they're going to love this. Once this thing really gets going and they start doing more and more of this kind of thing, it's just the athletes are going to feel really good about this.
Yeah, I like to say, I hope we have future NFL Player Man of the Year award winners come through Virginia Tech, because that is a major promotion in the NFL. They always go back to which player, each team promotes somebody for Man of the Year, the Walter Payton Award, as who is giving back the most to their community. Yeah. And so you watch an NFL game, they promote that. It's a big deal.
That's a huge honor.
Yeah, it's a huge honor. Yeah. And that is one fortunate thing I've seen in the younger people today. Everybody say, well, younger people today, they're doing all these crazy things. I don't know the percentages, but a lot higher percentage than ever are more interested in charitable giving, good causes, that type of thing. And it may be because kids today do have a little more free time and understand they're fortunate to come to college. But college kids nowadays are more understanding of giving back, and I think that's a key thing that this has.
I think we could have a whole podcast discussing the psychology behind that, but I'll try not to go down that tangent. So let's see. Looking at my list of topics, the next thing I want to get into is, who is the Hokie Way? And we've talked about your board of directors on previous podcasts, but I want to go over them again.
Okay.
There's 9 of them, right?
I think you're right.
I think it's 9.
Remember. Yeah.
So if you look at if you click on the board link on like a laptop or a computer, not your phone, you get 3 groups of 3, and the first group of 3 is what I call the 3 Jims.
All right.
There's Jim Petrine.
Yeah.
There is Jim Pearman, who is your treasurer.
Correct.
And Jim is also, I don't know Jim very well. I know that Jim has been a Tech Sideline subscriber for forever.
Yes.
And I gather just from things I've learned over the years that he's has been a major donor to Tech in the past, has been very involved. Yeah. And then the third Jim is Jim Cowan, who did, like you said, did the legal work in setting all this up.
That's actually also our executive committee. I'm the president, Jim Pearman is treasurer, and Jim Cowan is secretary.
Right.
Yep. So that's the exec committee too.
And then the next group is 2 principals from the major collectives, and that is
Kelly
Woolwine from Triumph. Now, for those that don't know, you mentioned Hot Route earlier. Yeah. Kelly started Hot Route and then later merged with Triumph. Correct. So Kelly is a major player with Triumph NIL. Yeah. And then there's Nick Rush, who is the head of Commonwealth NIL.
Correct.
So those two collectives, going back earlier in the conversation, any money that's raised by the Hokie Way it goes through those collectives to the athletes. So it makes sense to have them on your board and have them helping you shape policy and that sort of thing.
Right. And then the third one is
former student athletes.
Well, no, you skip Bridget.
Yeah, Bridget Ryan Berman. Well, she's in a class by herself.
Yeah, she is.
I've said this before on podcasts. If you've never heard of Bridget Ryan Berman, Google it. Yeah. She's one of the more impressive Virginia Tech graduates that I've learned about. So how did she get involved, and what's her role?
Well, she's in Pamplin. She also knew my wife, and also when we were setting this up, we were talking about people. We would like to get Pamplin more involved too in the whole name, image, and likeness deal. So there's kind of some connections there that we kind of hit, and we thought she'd have some great connections too. So, and she was very willing to serve. Already is serving on quite a few Pamplin boards. It's kind of the thing, if you willing to serve on any type of Virginia Tech board or operation, they suck you in and get you into other things too. So I'm on several of those boards. Any chance I could get a drink of water? I think I'm going to grab
a bottle of water.
Yeah, I didn't think about that earlier. Thank you.
So and then so that is 6 people, and the other 3 are former Virginia Tech athletes. 2 of them you've heard of, and the third one you may not have heard of. Right. 2 of them are Justin Robinson and Tyrod Taylor, and the third is Jalea Tolbert. Is that her last name?
Yes.
And Jalea was a volleyball player from 2015 to 2018.
I think it may be pronounced Jalen.
I
don't know.
We've gone back and forth about this on the podcast. Okay. I need to find out. It's spelled Jaila, which looks like Jayla, but then somebody told me it's Jalea. So we have to get that right if we're going to keep talking about her.
Apologize, because I deal with her more by emails and stuff. Yeah. But I have been.
So what role do the athletes serve on your board?
We wanted to get them, obviously, to get the student athlete side, and also to promote what we're doing with student athletes. And Gila also has already started a little business in the NIL, name, image, and likeness world. So she's getting a good feel for what's going on out there too. So
there's some synergy there.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. Feedback from all of them.
So that's an impressive board. But I think the way you've built it is good. And how long did it take to put that together?
Like I said, the first thought of this came up last April in spring game over cocktails.
All the best ideas come over drinks.
Yes, a cocktail party over the spring game. And since then, which is crazy. All this has been built, so it's been fast. So it's. I forget, what was your question again?
Question was, how long did it take to put the board together? And you basically told me.
Yeah, it was just a few months. But I mean, from very first inception, we moved pretty quick to get check with different members, different people. And of course, you had to put feelers out to see who would be willing to do. And of course, Justin and Tyrod were both 100% willing to jump on board, but said, they're kind of busy right now.
Yeah, right now, yes.
So they're working with us, but they're going to be more involved after the season's over.
Yeah. Well, those are guys that have pretty significant social media followings,
Absolutely.
Tyrod's name in particular carries a lot of weight.
Yes.
And has a lot of gravitas to it.
And he is very heavy in philanthropy, too.
Yeah.
Another one who is that. So I'm anxious for I know he's not anxious for the Giants season to be over, but when it's over, he'll be able to do some more things for us.
Yeah. So there are other people behind the scenes that you want to give some credit to. Before we went on the air, you had mentioned Kevin Jones.
Kevin Jones.
NIL and
yep. Joba is our marketing company. They're working.
And that is, for those that don't know, that's Kevin's design firm, Joba.
Correct.
Their major claim to fame is they designed the Tech Sideline logo.
There you go. And they've also now designed the Hokie Way logo, which you see up there, which we really like. I think it fits the prosum. It kind of fits the pillars of what we're trying to do there.
But from one of your descriptions, Kevin is one of those glue guys because he's involved in the process. He's a former athlete himself. He knows a lot of former athletes. So there are always people behind the scenes that get a lot done,
right?
Even though they're not listed on your board or anything like that.
Correct. Yeah. Kevin also works with Triumph by hiring athletes. So he's direct link with the student athletes, especially in football, of marketing. And his marketing firm is helping them learn what name, image, and likeness will do, help develop their overall, marketing capabilities.
Yeah.
So it's a perfect match for him to be involved with the student athletes there.
Yeah, I think Triumph is interesting because they're more holistic. They're more of I think they call themselves an agency, and they do focus on the overall image of the athlete, not just, hey, let's sign contracts and hook them up with money.
Right.
And they are very strong in aspects like branding and things like that. So so it makes sense. Anybody else you want to give credit to that we haven't gone through?
Probably Kelly Woolwine, who I think I mentioned already, but he's been a big force behind all this. His company Evolution HR has always been a big supporter of Virginia Tech athletes, the Roanoke Valley Hokie Club. He sponsors our events there all the time, and he's been behind Tech athletics a lot, and he's really a driving force behind Triumph and just working very hard. And I don't know the exact makeup of Triumph, but I don't believe he's doing any of this to make any money off it either. He's one of these guys who's doing it because he loves Virginia Tech athletes.
Yeah, it's
his hard work. I will plug one other person too before I forget. We kind of jokingly go back and forth between Kevin and Robin, who's the husband, who's the wife, who's the more famous at the time.
Yeah.
Robin does a great job with Joba, Robin Jones,
right?
And she's in that marketing part, and she's done a great job for us too.
We have partnerships with the Hokie Way and with Triumph, and I deal with Robin for both of them.
Yeah.
She's my gateway to everybody else.
Yeah, we started teasing Kevin for a while there. He was going to be the less famous Jones there in the thing.
As more and more time goes on, Robin becomes more famous than Kevin. So Nick, I know you're not on the mic, but do you have are there any questions or anything from the chat that we should answer?
Just one asking if you built the Back Creek project in Bath County.
So somebody wants to know if Jim built the Back Creek project in Bath County.
It's Bath County Pump Storage Project, and I was one of thousands and thousands. It was a big project. $400 million budget back in 1980.
Wow.
So we were spending $1 million a day. It was a crazy project.
Wow.
But I was one of the, one of the people coordinating it.
Man, that was a long time ago. That was 40 years ago.
It was crazy.
Yeah.
There was money going out the door faster than you can imagine.
So what's describe to me the next year for the Hokie Way?
Okay. I do want to back up. I think
Okay.
I skipped Nick Rush.
Yep.
We were talking about people who need. Nick is a great contact for us also because was a politician. He knows some of the political ins and outs of this thing, and I do want to give credit with Commonwealth. He is doing a great job. His focus has been a little more on the basketball side.
Yeah.
But he's done a great job with us also.
I've known Nick for about a year now. I think it'll be a year in February. I think he first reached out to me in February. And as a former member of the House of Delegates, I think that's, so Nick does know a lot of people and have a lot of contacts. Yeah. But the other thing I like about Nick is when you've been in politics like he was, he's very level-headed. Nothing surprises him, good or bad.
Yeah.
It's that's a good person to know that isn't surprised by anything because they've been in politics and have seen it all. Yeah. So that's one of my favorite things about Nick.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So let's go back to the question: what is the next year going to be like for the Hokie Way? And by extension, one of the things I want to ask you is, this is a new thing.
Correct.
Not just you guys, but NIL in general.
Correct.
And so there is excitement and a momentum for it. Yep. But over time, this is something that has to be done every year, So tell me about the, for lack of a better word, sustainability of something like what you're doing.
Well, that's where we get into the bigger donors who you have to cultivate over time.
Yeah.
The world is changing, and fortunately, WIT understands
with
that.
Babcock.
We've kind of had this discussion. The battleground of how student athletes will come to schools has just changed tremendously. I gave the example earlier of naval warfare for years and years and years, where it was throughout history was battleships or starting from armadas was, the ships who could fight each other.
You line up next to each other, fire cannons at each other.
And do that from, the armadas all the way through to the battleships of the Bismarck and whatever. Suddenly, this warfare has changed. Aircraft carriers have come involved. Yeah. It's a total different game changer. Who had the biggest, fanciest facility to impress kids? Who had the waterfalls in their weight room, or all these crazy things that different schools were building.
The sleeping pods in the locker room.
Yeah, it was crazy. The money that universities were spending to try to attract student athletes to sign
that was
them.
One of their best recruiting tools.
Yes.
In the way they could separate themselves.
And they were spending millions on facilities that just impress. Well, that's no longer going to be the case. If you go, WIT has said this before too, if you go to the pro locker rooms and the pro facilities, they don't have the fanciest stuff. Yeah. That's because, the pros get paid. They're not looking for, who has something to impress them to go work out in. So it's a whole new game changer in that we have to have facilities, obviously, and we have some very good facilities. So we're in good shape there. But the future is not necessarily, and let me say this is my words, not the university's words. So let me qualify that. But the university was getting ready to do a huge $100 million fundraiser for totally redoing Castle Coliseum. I got a feeling that may not be the future. We will need to redo Castle Coliseum somewhat, but that price tag is probably going to change a whole lot. There's going to be an emphasis on name, image, and likeness. And this is where the crazy rules, which we have here, which say the do's and don'ts, become a real problem. The university cannot be 100% involved in name-and-mention NIL. This has to be somewhat separate. We have to do a lot of this stuff at arm's length. But the university needs the money to go to these NILs to get to the student athletes, more so than the $100 million renovation. And how that works in the future, again, is all who's smartest and who can deal with this the quickest is going to be at a great advantage.
Yes, anytime the landscape or the ground shifts underneath you,
Yes.
who responds to that the best?
Yes.
And man, and NIL is one of the biggest things to come along in college athletics ever.
Ever.
You know,
It is.
all the previous changes were, you know, I can think of, for example, the SEC starting their SEC championship game and expanding to 12 schools
Right.
and signing big TV contracts. These are things that changed college athletics over the years. And this is another one.
This one is going to be the biggest one I think we've seen in our lifetime, to be perfectly honest with you.
Yeah, I'd like to live a lot longer, so maybe I'll see something. I'll see something
Yeah.
later. You know,
Yeah.
like, but yeah, you're absolutely right. So,
And like I said, it's also the key part of this is a huge advantage for the schools that get it right
Yeah.
first. And Witt gets this, I'm glad to say. He is understanding. We are cultivating what we can do big long-term to make this work long-term.
yeah,
And that's key. He's understanding, and he's
and that's something he'll
working
have to
with the right
navigate.
people. Yep.
Because you know they've been getting the feedback from donors where the Hokie Club goes to the big donors that they've always gone to.
Correct.
And now the big donors are I don't want to use the word distracted, but there's something else that's drawing their attention and the need.
Yep. And the Hokie Club, we talked about this earlier, has to continue funding scholarships. You're talking about over $16 million budget a year
Yes.
in just scholarships.
Yep.
The transition, I think, is going to be more the heavy dollars for facilities.
I agree with that.
That's and again, this is my thought process.
Yeah. So, and so I think I was guilty of being worried about NIL and worried that Tech couldn't keep up and couldn't compete. But literally in the last 2 months, I've come to feel a lot better about it. There's so much out and out falsehoods out there, and we talked about the stuff that, like that whole Texas A&M story, that was taken from a message board post, Jim. That wasn't even a real report, and then it gets passed around as gospel and as truth.
Right.
And so NIL is something that over time it's slamming up and down like this. It will level out.
Right.
You know, but I've learned, first of all, in the last couple of months, I've learned that there aren't necessarily enormous resources at a lot of schools around the country. Some there are, but not every Power 5 school. But the second thing I've learned is I hear back channel info on how much money is being marshaled by the Virginia Tech collectives in your organization. And it's a competitive amount of money. So to me, this is very encouraging.
Yeah.
And I think part of it is, you know, what you guys are doing. There's a lot of players that rushed in NIL quickly, but I feel like the path that Virginia Tech organizations have taken has been more measured and more, and I feel like now they're all coming together. So congratulations to you guys on getting everything in place and just continuing to execute.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, it's been mind-opening or mind-boggling to me to see the change. Again, I've been around athletics for a long time. I've always been a Tech fan, so I've been fortunate, and over the years have done, as I've been able to make more money in my personal life, have been able to give back more. So I've always loved giving back and have helped with, for example, Merriman Center. I helped with the redo of that. That was what we needed at that time. But now to see this change of what the new game is going to be is mind-boggling. But, you know, I think we talked about it earlier. My first gut feel wasn't great.
Yeah.
When people started talking pay for play, that type of thing, it wasn't great. But then I've started to see a lot more of the positive side of this.
Yeah.
When you think about how many student athletes do not go on to the pros, and to say, well, they get a scholarship. Yeah, most of these kids, though, are coming from pretty tough
A lot of them, yeah.
backgrounds. And a scholarship is great, but hopefully they get a scholarship that can really help them and not, we all heard the stories of some schools giving them a scholarship in basket weaving, and they get out of school and they don't have anything that they can do with it. So this can really turn out to be a real positive for the athletes also, if you do it the right way.
And so I get back to the Justin Mutz story where we did the poster project with him.
Yeah.
And I was looking at old podcast notes. I haven't been gauche enough to put the actual number on it. But Justin made he made tens of thousands of dollars through that.
Right.
And he's not posting pictures of himself on social media in a new car. Right. It's actually, when we talked to Justin at one point in the project, he started asking us how to invest that money.
Right.
And I told him, and people who listen to podcasts have heard this story, I said, buy yourself something nice. And later on I said, well, did you buy yourself something nice? And he said, well, I got this sweatshirt. So this is an example of a kid that gets it.
Yeah.
And we all know Justin is a smart kid.
Yeah.
But he gets it. He's looking at the longer term picture, and he's taking this money and he's investing it. Yeah. And I saw a headline just probably this morning about I think it was a basketball player who made NIL money and used it to pay off his sister's student loans or something like that.
Absolutely.
And you're going to hear more and more of this kind of stuff. And Nick likes that idea.
Yeah. Pay off your student loan.
So more and more of this stuff's going to start coming out, and we're going to start feeling better about things. It's like everything NIL has its downside. Some schools are not managing this well.
Right.
And we'll just leave it at that. The on-field performance is not matching the resources that are being put into NIL. So that's a disconnect. But go ahead.
I'll throw in one more thing. Obviously, you have to have the whole program. One thing I love what I'm seeing right now about Virginia Tech and why I'm excited about supporting it is I love seeing what Brent Pry is doing. He is getting culture. We're not looking at just bidding for the highest player. He understands culture. We want the player who fits the Virginia Tech mold and the Virginia Tech culture that we have here. All he's asking for is to be able to compete.
Right.
He doesn't want to. If a kid gets offered $200,000 somewhere else, he doesn't want to say, "Well, I don't have a dime to offer you." He's not asking to match anybody, but he's saying, "I want to be able to, come up with something for the kid, and be somewhat competitive. I'm not going to try to outbid anybody, especially the Ohio States and those guys. That's not the market we're trying to do this at. We need to be able to be very competitive with our money there. And that's all he's asking for, which I love.
And the way I always talk about that is if you've got an accomplished player here at Virginia Tech, he's had a couple of good seasons.
Correct.
He's getting back channel offers in quotes from other schools.
I love it.
There's a human resistance to change.
Yeah.
If this particular player likes it at Virginia Tech, he enjoys his teammates, he enjoys Blacksburg, he enjoys VT, you don't have to necessarily match that offer. Like you said, just be competitive.
Yeah.
And let the athlete know that you respect what they've accomplished.
Correct.
And so I agree with all that. And the last thing I'll say about NIL is I get when I think about where I want Tech Sideline to go, what I want to do with it. I think that Tech Sideline has a lot of potential in the NIL space. And it's interesting to hear you say that the couple $100,000 that you've raised this month, that a lot of it can be attributed back to the promotional efforts just through our website and our social media and things like that. And it just makes me wonder what's possible, and so I just wanted to let everybody out there know that the gears are always turning. I love projects, and that's why we did the Mutz project. Yeah. Because it was possible.
Right.
I thought, wow, we are uniquely positioned to do this.
Right.
And we did it, and it went really well. And I haven't forgotten that. It's not like I don't think about that.
Yeah.
You know, so I got all kinds of cool ideas.
Okay. Yeah.
So is there anything else you want to add before we sign off other than click the link and donate?
Oh, wow. Click the link and donate. Write a check, mail it in. We have that too if you're writing big checks, because that saves us a few money. We're trying to save every dime to do this.
You're talking about credit card processing
Correct.
fees, right? If you
Yeah.
send in a check,
Yeah.
that 3% doesn't get lopped
Yeah,
off the top.
yeah. Unfortunately, that's 6% actually through that once, whatever.
Yikes.
But so if you're writing big, if you're going to do a big amount, please write a check and mail it in, and you'll still get the donation in this year. I really feel this is a positive moving forward, and like I said, I was around for a long time and did not have a good feel at the beginning. The more I've been around it, the more I've seen it, the more I've been able to see Brent Pry and what he did on signing day, which you guys covered so well.
Yeah.
To personally be there and see those families react to getting a scholarship from Virginia Tech, and to see that mom and dad half the time was having to zoom in from work, because guess what? They still had to pay the bills. All those families, how excited they were to see those are the kids that we're helping with this. Yeah. To get to see that personally, that was a pretty fun thing. Anybody who hasn't been able to see some of the things from his signing day thing, that was great. Really cool. And like I said, Brent Pry gets it. All of our coaching staff, Whit's done a great job. God knows we couldn't ask for better coaches right now than Mike Young and what he's done. I just want to support him. Yeah. That's all I can say.
So definitely go donate. Follow the Hokie Way on social media. You guys are on Twitter. I know you're also on Facebook. Mm-hmm. And we're really looking forward to, as this thing gets off the ground and we start seeing the athletes promote these charitable causes. We're really looking forward to that. I think that's going to be neat, and I think that's going to draw people together. So,
oh yeah,
congratulations, and thank you for coming on.
Thank you,
folks. That'll do it. That wraps up episode 278 of the Tech Sideline Podcast. Thanks to Jim Petrine, and we'll see you probably next week. Have a happy New Year.